A lot of games have characters that do boxing. Some of them even do it pretty well. Rarely as well as these two though. The flashy flicker jab spamming M. Bison replacement buddy, Ed from Streets, and the devil gene enhanced egg of a professional assassin, Steve Fox of Tekken fame. Sharing similar styles and backgrounds, today we'll see who better represents the art of boxing.
The Minecraft Steve?
No! So, how are we going to determine this? We'll do the same thing we did with the Witcher breakdown and rate their skills in terms of stance and footwork, offensive and defensive techniques, and finally how well they combine these into a cohesive boxing style. We'll not be taking a look at every single strike either fighter has. Instead, we'll go for a general overview of their styles. Also, if you want to see more martial arts oriented videos like this, give the channel a sub maybe. Sounds good?
What?
Yeah, sick. Okay. Without further ado, let's get ready to rumble! Round 1. Right off the bat, I want to point out that Steve and Ed utilize very different styles of boxing. Steve is more of a basic orthodox boxer, so hands close to the face with the lead hand a bit further away for fast and less telegraphed jabs to set up powerful rights. On the other hand, Ed uses the Philly shell inspired by people like Floyd Mayweather Jr., which gives more lead hand, jab and hook angles and protects your body a bit more in exchange for mobility. Steve also utilizes Philly shell to some extent, and he has a few moves from Peekaboo too, but unlike for Ed, neither of them is his main style. As a side note, I'll be talking about Peekaboo and Philly shell a lot in this video. They're not the only styles of boxing god to represent defensive counterpunchers and aggressive close-range brawlers respectively, but they're used by both fighters here to some extent. They're also visually really distinct, great opposites for each other, and due to people like Tyson and Mayweather and media such as the classic Hajime no Ippo, they're very familiar to both boxing fans and geeks out there. Also, I just personally really like using both of them.
And they're cool.
They're cool, it's the cool factor, you know. Rule of cool, you know.
You know.
Now then, Steve's basic stance is nothing that special. When standing still, he bobs side to side with his feet planted firmly on the ground. Nothing bad with that, perfectly fine. It's a good stance to launch both rear and lead hand strikes, but when moving back and forth, it's honestly sort of stiff looking. Like the feet are just gliding across the floor without either leg doing the work to propel the body forward.
He has Roombas on his feet.
Exactly. When going from orthodox to Philly shell, he does perform a solid pendulum step, and in his peekaboo techniques, he does some realistic correcting steps after punches. Overall, during attacks, Steve's footwork looks pretty accurate. He bends his knees and turns with the balls of his feet when punching. It's just that the bottom of Steve's shoes have a severe separation anxiety with the floor. Only time when this is not true is either when Steve is jumping, which you shouldn't really do in boxing, or in his Lionheart stance, which is this fancy Muhammad Ali type shuffle, but I'll talk about this later in round 3. How about Ed? When idle, he does some constant movement with his whole body. His lead hand keeps doing this light shaking so it's ready to launch into a flicker at any moment. His rear hand constantly shifts its defensive position and is ready to take on a punch and return in kind. His feet keep looking for a proper placement and his head stays in motion to not be an easy target. Ed's steps have a lot more intentionality to them. When walking back and forth, Ed keeps moving and bopping constantly, ready to spring into a strike. Excellent depiction of a counterpuncher looking for an opening and keeping his options varied.
A+.
When dashing, Ed properly pushes with the opposite foot of the direction he's going in, so you can always feel where the weight of Ed's body is placed. Ed also has the same Ali shuffle, but it's a taunt that doesn't really go anywhere, just showboating to present his fast footwork. Comparing just their back and forth movement, it's pretty easy to see what I mean by Ed's moves being more intentional. The head movement, hand positioning and footwork Ed demonstrates makes him seem like a competent and confident boxer, while Steve just kinda walks back and forth. So the first round goes to Ed, no doubt about that. Round 2! So, how about them techniques? Well, both Ed and Steve are a rare sight on this channel in that they pretty much never drop their guard during strikes. All of their strikes are exceptionally well animated and both look like professional boxers. The difference comes in the style of their boxing.
These guards are absolutely fucking buzzing.
Good job.
That's so funny.
Steve, as an orthodox fighter, uses a lot of jabs and lead hooks to set up stronger knockout punches. All of these look fine. The only strikes I have some issue are the jumping ones. This weird shoryuken feels super out of place for a boxer. Steve also has some illegal moves like punches below the belt and even a couple kicks. Ihan vitu laitonta! As defensive moves, Steve has basic stiff blocking and parries, as well as multiple different dodge options to basically any direction you could need. Steve can slip to either side, lean back for a counter opportunity, a deep forward stepping crouch, and these spinning moves for both sides. It's a rare case to see a boxer spin in the ring since with no kicks or back fists allowed, basically the only move you get any sort of momentum for from a spin is a hook punch. As we said earlier in round 1, Steve has both peekaboo and Philly shell. Both stances in and of themselves are defensive actions. Philly shell, also called shoulder roll, works by turning sideways to make you a slimmer target and rolling the opponent's punches away by rotating your torso. In Philly shell, you guard your torso with the lead side glove and forearm, the lead side ribs with the upper arm, and protect your head with the lead shoulder and backhand. But, unlike Ed, Steve doesn't stay in this stance for more than a transitional period. He just goes into the stance, throws whatever you want him to throw from there and exits it.
Which is, I think, fine.
It is perfectly fine. On the other hand, Steve's peekaboo is a fixed stance, from where he can go for different attacks and back to peekaboo. Peekaboo is basically the opposite of Philly shell in that it focuses on protecting yourself by curling your body forward to protect the midsection and turtling your guard around the face so you can tank shots more easily. Unlike in Philly shell, where you make yourself a smaller target horizontally, in peekaboo you do the same but vertically. Peekaboo is used to get safely inside the opponent's range without taking decisive hits and setting up your own barrages of devastating close-range body shots and uppercuts. Interestingly, in peekaboo, Steve can't walk backwards. This neatly emphasizes the aggressive, offensive nature of peekaboo.
Peekaboo is perfect for vertically challenged people.
Like me! Now then, how about Ed? Let's get this out of the way first. Ed has psycho powers. We'll skip most of them.
What? He's a psychopath?
No, he has psycho powers.
What is that? What?
They're like psychic magic.
Oh.
We'll skip most of them because I'm not very well versed in the use of psychic powers or magic in combat sports. But I do say he executes perfect crosses and flicker jabs when throwing these, so regardless of them being essentially magic bullets and like this weird psychic lasso thingy, he still does them like a boxer. Surprisingly, Ed's normal light is an uppercut instead of a jab. This kinda makes sense to be honest, since in his stance, Ed holds his lead hand fairly low and close to his body. It's a lot easier to shoot up a wide, almost like a knuckle down facing straight, than your traditional boxing jab. Other than this, Ed is really keen on using the flicker jab. He can do it at 3 different heights, which emphasizes the versatility in attacking angles you get from a Philly shell. Likewise, this uppercut to lead hook to cross string just shows you how fast his lead hand action is, as does this lightning fast flicker barrage. It goes like a lot of stings with the lead hand.
What? Float like a butterfly, sting like a lot of stings from the bee.
Ed's offensive style is more akin to the style of Thomas Hearns than it is to the defensive use of a Philly shell. Thomas Hearns wasn't nearly as defensive in his boxing as people like Floyd Mayweather Jr. Similarly, Ed's offensive techniques have more forward-leaning, aggressive nature than the counter-punching flickers and lead hooks of many Philly shell users. The recovery animations for pretty much every non-flicker strike Ed has also shows this more offensive nature, but we'll talk about them later in round 3 again. Ed also has some peekaboo-ish elements, especially this forward-moving dodge looks like a start for one of the most famous bob and weave style users, Jack Dempsey's signature technique, the Dempsey roll.
I know that from Ippo.
Now, which one takes round 2 then? Honestly, it's really hard to say. Both fighters show excellent use of their natural style strengths. For Steve, these are hard-hitting hooks and crosses with a solid stance to take hard blows without losing his ground. For Ed, it's lightning-fast flickers that maximize his fighting range and set him up for devastating counters. Interestingly, they're pretty much the opposite in how they use the peekaboo and Philly shell, with Ed using ducking and weaving as gap closers or to end an exchange safely, but he holds the Philly shell as his neutral stance, while Steve uses Philly shell as a transitional tool and holds either orthodox or peekaboo as a stationary guard. I can't really say which one does it better, so I'm going to say round 2 is a tie. Do you agree?
Yes.
Good. Round 3. Some people might look amazing when doing fancy footwork drills. Some people might have excellent control and power in their strikes when punching the heavy bag, and some might seem really proficient when shadowboxing, but alone, none of these make for a proper boxer. So lastly, we'll see how well these proud pugilists do with combining their attack, defense and footwork into a proper cohesive boxing style. Let's start with Steve again. When just moving alone, Steve's footwork looked fairly janky, but surprisingly, when combining his footwork and striking, he looks pretty goddamn proficient. He can chain dodges to different stance changes and those to multiple types of combos. From a backsway, Steve can go to either an uppercut on the same beat as the opponent tries to land their strike, or he can go to an overhand hook a beat later to catch the retreating opponent. As a third option, he can clinch from the backsway and shift places with the opponent. Perfect for when you're pressured against the ropes. From a right weave, Steve can shoulder bump into a hook and a lion heart, the Ali shuffle I mentioned in round 1. From lion heart, he can go to either a new strike or to duck in. From duck in, Steve can continue to strike, or he can go to a bob and weave and then a strike. You can see how many options there are. The constant shifting of timing and height and switching between offensive and defensive actions keeps Steve's opportunities open and puts immense pressure on the opponent. He has tools for every situation regardless of what his opponent tries to counter with. I have no issue with Steve's technical execution at all. Instead of just trying to brute force his basic orthodox style into working, he's a fully rounded boxer with the eye to change his game plan and style depending on what's happening. How about Ed then? Ed's style isn't quite as complex. Instead, what little Ed does, he does extremely well. His entire style revolves around the Philly shell. From his stance, he can counter a strike thrown at him no matter the height. Similarly to how people like Floyd Mayweather can remain basically untouchable for rounds on end. He has this psycho-powered move where he lets his lead hand drop down, ignoring the supernatural powers for a second there. This is still a valid boxing strategy. Ed lowers his guard to invite the opponent to strike. From here, he can either intercept the opponent with a strike of his own or go into a backstepping weave. Everything offensive Ed throws is followed by some kind of defensive action. Couple of examples here. In a pullback for his mid-height flicker jab, Ed brings his rear hand further to parry any possible counter punches the opponent might throw after the flicker. From a low flicker jab, Ed tightens his Philly shell with the lead hand almost tucked under the rear elbow. From a right body shot, he goes to this rolling guard for a second. After his dash and cross, Ed goes to this bob and weave with his hands up and close to the face. He never lets himself get caught unguarded for even a second. One aspect where Ed and Steve are opposites is in their forward momentum. When Steve throws a strike, he pretty much always moves forward with some sort of step. Ed does step into his punches, but he steps right back after. Of course, there are some exceptions like the forward dashing bob and weave where Ed can continue into an uppercut, or this flicker jab barrage where Ed pressures the opponent with angle changes, forward momentum and lightning fast jabs until landing a devastating overhand. So which one is better then? Again, it's hard to say since both fighters demonstrate excellent qualities fitting a world-class fighter. Ed has a clear and solid style to his boxing, excellent defense and clear affinity for counterpunching. Steve, on the other hand, has a little bit of everything. He can change his approach and gameplay in a second, answering to pretty much everything the opponent can throw at him. Since we're not just talking about who does single things like footwork or defense better, I'd say Steve's fully rounded boxing style wins round 3. Now then, with both fighters having 1 round win under their belt, it all comes down to the judges' scorecards. That's us. I genuinely had a hard time deciding which one should take this match, since both Ed and Steve do what they do incredibly well. But I do think Steve as a whole is a bit better representation for boxing as a style of combat sport. Ed is an excellent depiction of a specific type of boxer, mainly the Philly shell using counterboxer. But Steve can show you every aspect of the art of boxing. So to me, by the slightest of margins, Steve is the winner here.
For me, just as a visual person, I like Ed more, because I think his movements are fluid and it looks like he knows how to box. For Steve, like some of the movements are a little bit janky. So my point goes to Ed.
I get that. What do you guys think? If you disagree with anything I said, you can go down to the comments and start yelling at me. I'm not a professional in terms of boxing, martial arts analysis or video making, so I'm open to any kind of criticism and I'll gladly take your opinions into consideration. If you want to see more video game martial arts analysis or real life martial arts showcases, be sure to sub to the channel and follow us on the socials and all that. We'll see you again next time. Bye!